Now, you're probably all wondering where the hell the movie reactions have been, because I haven't done a movie reaction in a number of months. The last movie reaction I did was almost a year ago. Now, I can't give you an explanation, but I can give you a word. TENET. Hello guys, and welcome back to a brand new video from me, Pickles Park Reviews. Now, today I'm going to be doing a review of TENET, the Christopher Nolan film that was released very recently in cinemas. It was the first major film, I believe, to be released back into cinemas after the coronavirus pandemic stopped all the theatres from opening. And TENET was obviously supposed to be released in July, but it was pushed back to the ending of August, and I went to see it in cinemas. On the day of release, I went to see it. Well, this video should hopefully be up on Wednesday, so I went to see it about a week ago on the Wednesday of its release in the UK, and I was extremely excited for this film. And with it being the first film released back into cinemas, did it live up to the hype? Well, let's find out. Now, Christopher Nolan is a filmmaker I admire quite a lot, and I've been watching more of his films recently. For a very long time, I'd only really watched the Dark Knight trilogy. You guys know I'm a massive Batman fan, so obviously I would have watched the Dark Knight trilogy. However, I wasn't really all too familiar with his other filmography. However, that's changed recently. During lockdown, I've watched both Inception, which I watched a few months ago, and the night before I went to see TENET, I actually watched The Prestige as well, and both Inception and The Prestige are brilliant films and really highlight the best of what Christopher Nolan has to offer as a filmmaker. That's that he takes very basic ideas and makes a brilliant film around them. With The Prestige, it was taking magicians and stage magicians. With Inception, it was taking dreams. With the Dark Knight trilogy, it was taking Batman. And even in films like Dunkirk and Interstellar, which I haven't seen, he's obviously taking space and a war movie. And obviously Nolan takes very basic inspiration and makes a brilliant film out of it. I think that's why so many people are anticipating what he would do with time travel, because obviously time travel is a very interesting concept, and everyone was really excited to see how Nolan would tackle that, and so was I, especially after watching Inception and seeing what Nolan was capable of with the dream format. And I think that's why a lot of people were comparing TENET and Inception before the film's release, was because it does have a very similar premise. With Inception, Nolan took the concept of dreams and lucid dreams and made a film around it, and this time Nolan is taking the concept of time travel and basing a film around it. And that's naturally why a lot of people are excited about this film, me included. I'm a massive fan of time travel. I think there's so many interesting things you can do with time travel in so many different avenues, so many different parts of time travel, so many different rules, such as the grandfather paradox, you've got the bootstrap paradox, all these different really high concept ideas I just love about time travel. And you can obviously tell in my loves of certain media, like if you've been around the channel, you know that my favourite TV show is Doctor Who, and obviously a big part of that is time travel. So naturally you can obviously tell that I'm really into the ideas of time travel and what can really be explored within those, and therefore time travel, which is something that I'm really fascinated by, and then Christopher Nolan, who takes basic ideas and makes a brilliant film. That was almost a match made in heaven, and I think particularly after watching Inception and then The Prestige, I was really excited to see how Nolan would tackle this. Obviously, TENET is a big film generally for films everywhere in the world at the moment, because obviously it's the first film going into cinemas after the coronavirus pandemic. And I'll just talk about my experience. It was a very good experience actually. Also, I went to see it the day of release, and naturally there was a fair few people in the cinema, but not an amazing amount. The social distancing was good. I'm not even sure if there were any other people on our row. There might have been. We did get to cinema a little bit late, unfortunately. We just managed to get in as the credits started rolling, because we had some food and we only just got out there. We didn't time it particularly well. Anyway, that's besides the point. The experience was good. And yeah, I think a lot of people who are saying don't go into cinemas, fair enough, but I think that it is safe, or at least the cinema I went to was safe, and yeah, I really enjoyed it going there, and the experience was really good, and it was nice to go into a cinema and watch a film. I don't think I'd seen a film in a cinema this year. I think the last film I'd went to see in cinemas was actually Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker on Christmas Eve, obviously in 2019, so it was nice to just go into a cinema and watch this film that I'd been hyped for months, and everyone had hyped up for months. How was Tenet? I'll be honest, I was a little bit disappointed. It pains me to say this, but out of all of the Nolan films I've seen, I know I haven't seen his whole filmography, but of the 5 Nolan films, I've seen 6 now, including Tenet. It's easily the weakest Nolan film I've seen, and that is a shame. But that's not to say that it doesn't have redeeming elements in it, because it certainly does. I think Tenet's issue is there are some brilliant ideas there, but unfortunately they're not communicated amazingly well, and it was particularly disappointing because some of Nolan's best attributes as a filmmaker is a screenplay. I think that we know that Nolan's films always look pretty, but he's not the best visual director. If you want to see a really gorgeous looking film, you don't go to Nolan. Obviously, his films are well shot, they look nice, but visual filmmaking isn't his specialty in terms of a filmmaker. But what Nolan thrives with, I think, is always the screenplay. I was thinking about this after I watched The Prestige, and I thought about The Prestige, and I thought, this is one of the best screenplays that I think I've ever witnessed, because it was so tight, so compact, so focused and set up. If you watch The Prestige, you know what I'm talking about. There are certain twists in there that are set up and you think about, and the more you think about The Prestige, you think, oh Jesus, that was so clever. That's all down to the script and the screenplay, because of how tightly focused and tightly written and compact and well set up and threaded through that screenplay was the key to why that movie works so well. It's the same with Inception. Inception doesn't work if the screenplay and the world building and the rules and the imagination isn't there. If the screenplay is bad, Inception doesn't work as a film. But thankfully it does. Nolan really sat down and created this world and created these different rules about the dreaming and all this sorts of stuff that really makes Inception pop as a film. And as I said, Nolan, he's a good visual director, but it's not his specialty. But Nolan's screenplays are always what stand out to me. And unfortunately, I don't think he really succeeded with his screenplay of Tenet. As I said before, I think that there are a load of really good ideas in Tenet, and they contribute a few really good scenes, some really clever and inventive scenes in this movie, but I think as a story, Tenet doesn't really hit the mark, and I think that is mainly down to how it's communicated in the script, because obviously Tenet is about time travel, and it looks at time travel in a really unique and high concept way, in a really unique way that I don't think I've ever seen before, in the sense that if you travel back in time, then everything would be inverted, you'd be going back. And that is a really clever way, the fact that if you travel back in time, everything is essentially in reverse, like when you're pressing the reverse button on a old VHS player, for example, that kind of thing. And this whole idea about a bullet which is inverse, so everything happens in reverse, and how if you spot a bullet mark in a window or something, then you know that someone's going to come in and that bullet is then going to go straight back, and how, yeah, it essentially works in reverse. And that, the whole idea of time travel meaning things get inverted is such a clever and unique take. I've never seen that done before, and that's the best thing about Tenet, is those unique ideas. But I think the problem is that I don't think the story makes enough of that premise, and the story is really hard to follow. Now, you could put this down to me just being really stupid, but I do usually follow complicated plots reasonably well. I follow it more than most people. I mean, I couldn't be a Doctor Who fan in recent years if I couldn't somehow try to make sense of some of the complicated plots that Stephen Moffat tried to come up with. However, there's just something about how it's portrayed in Tenet that I just found it really hard to follow and really get a grasp of what was going on. Nolan's films get criticised for having a lot of exposition, but I think perhaps in this film, maybe they needed a little bit more, or maybe it just needed to be worded better, because I didn't feel as if the ideas of time travel were really communicated well into the script, or just general events of what were happening in the script. Especially early on in the film, there's a lot of moving from one location to another, and then another and another, and John David Washington does this, that leads to this, and he does this because he wants to do this. And a lot of the time, you're just sat there and you're not really sure why John David Washington's character, simply titled the protagonist, is really doing what he's doing. Or at least it felt like to me, and it wasn't just me, because I went to see Tenet with 3 other friends, and they all kinda had the same feeling. Even one friend I had, Arthur, who has watched all of Christopher Nolan's filmography, even he struggled to follow this film. I could just see him, he was just sat there, bamboozled, looking at the screen. I think it could have just been put across better in the script. But essentially, John David Washington is recruited into this Tenet program, and to try and stop World War III, which is coming from the future, they find these inverted bullets, which obviously using time travel, he needs to then find out and stop the source of these inverted bullets. So he goes to see this arms dealer in India, I think it is, correct me if I'm wrong, and then they say, well, we're just the arms dealer, you need to go see Michael Caine. He goes see Michael Caine, and he says it was bought off of this guy who's Kenneth Branagh's character, and you need to get him with his wife to try and get through to him to go into cover. So he goes to Kenneth Branagh's wife, and it realizes she's being blackmailed, and that's all kind of easy to follow. And then after that, he goes to meet Kenneth Branagh's character, and that all gets a little bit confusing. He goes to then undercover and steal some plutonium, I think. And then he doesn't, and then he does, but it's not plutonium, it's this contraption that he's going to use to make the whole world inverted or something, I believe, and that somehow destroys the world. And then there's something to do with him going to an art gallery and crashing the plane in there that happens early on in the film, and then they take it back and go into time travel, and it gets all very confusing. I honestly couldn't really explain the plot after that. It's a bit messy. I don't think the story is the best story Nolan could have told, and as I said, it's just not very easy to follow. It's a 2.5 hour film, and a lot of it I was just sat there not really following the story, not really knowing what was going on, and that is a problem. And it's especially disappointing, as I said, because Nolan's films are known for his brilliant screenplays. That's something I particularly admire about Nolan as a filmmaker, is the brilliance of his scripts and how he can articulate certain ideas and put them across. And this film didn't really have that. He had those brilliant ideas, yes, but he didn't smoothly put it into a story. The story was very messy, hard to follow, and ultimately, yeah, just a bit of a mess. That's a shame, as I said. However, that doesn't mean that Tenet is bad or is not worth going to see, because I would absolutely go see this film. I think as a production, this film is marvellous. Now, I went to see this at an IMAX screening, and the sound design for this film is brilliant. Obviously, Nolan isn't collaborating with the GOAT that is Hans Zimmer this time, because Zimmer was busy. He's collaborating with Ludwig Göransson, I think, of Black Panther fame. And Göransson gives us a really brilliant soundtrack. Actually, it has little wisps of similarity to Inception, but it also has its own unique style. It's got a very nice motif that keeps on playing, that you can really, if you think time travel motif, this is what you would think of. It's really clever, it's really nice, and the sound mixing is really good as well. I was sat in the IMAX screen. I don't usually go see films in IMAX, but one of my friends wanted to go see it in IMAX, and I just said, yeah, it's Nolan, so why not? And yeah, it felt as if you could feel the sound, and I know that's not naturally for everyone, but the sound design was really good. I think the soundtrack and the music composed by Ludwig Göransson was really inventive, really clever, and just really nice and really pleasing to listen to. It suited the scenes down to a T and just really fitted this film, and you didn't really sense Hans Zimmer's absence. Yeah, the sound design is really good and it fits the film really, really well. I also think the film is shot very well and it has some brilliant set pieces. The plane crashing into the art gallery, as much as I still I'm a bit confused as to its relevance in the scene. I think it's something to do with them trying to destroy the painting that Kenneth Branagh's wife, I think it's Laura DeBocchi, I think is the actress name. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll probably put it up on the screen. She is being blackmailed, so they go to try and destroy the painting by driving a plane into the building. And as much as I'm still a bit puzzled as to what the relevance of that scene is and why they even go back there later on, as much as that is clever, but I'll go on to that in a moment, that is a very cool scene. And then the scene where they go back there and the two people that they thought originally you realise was them from the future, that is really clever. And I didn't actually call it, and then my friend Cornell said to me, oh, they're going back to there, they were those two guys. I was like, whoa, that's really clever. So that was really clever. That was a really clever scene. And I think time travel is used quite cleverly in this film. As I said, the inverted bullets concept is really unique and really clever, and yeah, scenes like that as well. I think the final battle is really clever as well. So you've got one team going forwards in time, one team going backwards in time, and as they're running, you've got explosions going off and then like in reverse. So you see the explosion and then it goes back to unexploded. And then what was really clever is how when one team shot the building and nothing happened, and then the other team and the building fell down, and then they did the other thing, and then with the other side, the top bit exploded. That was really clever. I think scenes like that using the inverted concept was really clever. I just think everything to do with the inverted bullets, as much as the story was a bit of a mess, I think the concepts in there were really clever and lent themselves to some really clever set pieces. And I think that there are ideas as well, maybe some ideas that could have been put across better, like the whole ending reveal that John David Washington's character was actually the one who hired Robert Pattinson's character, and he's the one who started all this. It's a nice idea. I think that there could have been a lot more foreshadowing to the story. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. It's like, well, I guess so. I would have expected a bit more foreshadowing in that, especially you look at Nolan movies such as The Prestige, and even things such as The Dark Knight Rises. There's a lot more foreshadowing in those films to big plot twists, whereas that plot twist kind of came out of nowhere. However, I will say another plus of this film is the performances are really solid. The characters don't have quite as much depth as I think was kind of necessary. John David Washington's character doesn't really have much of a personality. I know that's the point, as he's called the protagonist, but he doesn't really have too much of a personality. He's a little bit generic, but John David Washington brings a lot to this performance. He's so charming, charismatic, funny. He brings a lot to this performance, and he does carry certain parts of the movie. I think John David Washington was really good as the lead character in this film, even if the writing wasn't always there. And Robert Pattinson as well, again, his character is a little bit paper thin. However, Robert Pattinson was really good in this film. He was actually really funny, and he made a great double act with John David Washington. And I think this was a really great role for Robert Pattinson, and yeah, he did a really good job. And it's given me more excitement to see him in The Batman. Laura DeBocchi, again, if I've got the name wrong, I'll put it up on screen. She was really good as well. I think she really portrayed the fear and loneliness that her character needed as someone who was being blackmailed by her very evil husband. I think she really brought a sense of sorrow to that role, and in a sense that she wasn't overplaying it, but you just always felt that sense of sadness in her acting. So she did a really good job as well, and she really fit that character. And she had one of the more layered characters in the movie. Her character was probably more layered than David Washington or Robert Pattinson's character, which is kind of odd. But yeah, she brought a lot to that performance. And Kenneth Branagh, he was quite well as well. He does have a little bit of a one-note character, but he does convincingly play evil. So he did do a good job at that. Again, I don't want to make it seem as if I'm hating on Tenet, because I'm not. I did enjoy the film. I think that there are many good elements. The cast are brilliant, their ideas there and the concepts I'm marvelled by, and there are some really good set pieces. However, I just think that it just isn't an amazing film, judging by the story and the script. I think it's a 2.5-hour movie. I just needed a bit more in terms of script, in terms of story and plot in there to really make this film pop. As I said, it's not bad, it's thoroughly enjoyable, and I would recommend that you go and see Tenet if you're a fan of Nolan, or you're just a fan of blockbusters or a fan of time travel, because you most likely will enjoy it. However, I think having watched Nolan's other films, and having even watched The Prestige literally the night before going to see Tenet, I think I was just a little bit let down by the screenplay, because I was expecting a bit more of a tight, focused narrative from Nolan that I didn't get with this film. I think that, yeah, maybe I expected a little bit more from Nolan. I think maybe it's just because it's been halted by the coronavirus pandemic, but I think this was Nolan's one chance to tackle time travel, and the concepts were certainly there. But from our hypothetical Nolan meets time travel movie, I would have expected the plot and script to just be a little bit sharper. The film was quite hard to follow, and that was a detriment to the film. It made me not enjoy it as much, because I was kind of wondering what the hell was going on at certain points. But it is enjoyable, don't get that twisted, and just the pure concepts alone are unique, brilliant, and that is why you go to a Nolan movie, because he is a god at taking basic concepts and putting a new spin on it. However, if you're expecting this film to be up to scratch and as brilliant as something like Inception, like I was, I think you will be a little bit disappointed, because it isn't quite as tightly focused as his other films, or his other films that I've seen. I think that the plot and story and how that was communicated to the audience was a bit disappointing. The actual raw concepts and the performances weren't. So Tenet is a bit of a mixed bag. However, I would say it is still very enjoyable. However, it just doesn't stand up to Nolan's previous work. So I'm going to give Tenet a 3 stars out of 5. I still think it was enjoyable, and I did enjoy it, but it's just not up to the standards of Nolan's previous work. But thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, drop a sub, and hit that notification bell to stay notified for all my latest videos. I hope you enjoyed this movie reaction. It's the first one I've done in a while, but I just thought that I wanted to do this. I went to see Tenet recently, and it's the first time I've been to a cinema in ages. It's the first time anyone will have been to a cinema in ages to watch a new film, so why not it be the first movie reaction in a while? And yeah, I just wanted to talk about Tenet because I thought it was a fascinating film, and fascinating in the concepts of a Nolan movie, so I thought that it would be very interesting to talk about it. In terms of more film reviews on the channel, yeah, that's certainly something that I'm planning to do more of. Obviously, I mentioned that I watched Inception and The Prestige. I'm actually going to do a scripted written review of those two movies. They'll be coming to the channel, as well as reviews in a similar ilk of Under the Silver Lake and Looper, because I watched those films recently. I say recently, in the last few months, and also I wrote the review, and I do hope to get those reviews out pretty soon. So if you enjoy written and scripted reviews of movies, then please stay tuned because those will be coming out. But in terms of movie reactions, who knows, there might be more in the future. Hopefully they will. I'm not really sure what's going on with films at the moment and when they'll be released, but obviously if there are films in cinemas that I would like to see, obviously you'll be getting a movie reaction for them. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed me talking about Tenet. I hope I gave you a pretty decent insight into the film. Obviously I did include spoilers in this video, and obviously I hope that you have seen the film if you're watching it, but if you haven't and don't mind spoilers, obviously I still do recommend going to see the film, even if it wasn't quite as perfect as I would have hoped it was. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review of Tenet, but thank you guys for watching, and of course, a goodbye.